So if you're in the habit of watching this show, you're probably MAGA, maybe even ultra MAGA. And at times over the past couple of years, it was a lonely place to be, wasn't it? I mean, everybody was kind of saying, are you sure about this? The indictments, maybe it's time to Ron DeSantis. He's like Trump without the baggage. Remember that one? Or Nikki Haley. She's like, well, they always did have a kind of a hard time figuring out why we should vote for her. But now that Trump has won, have you noticed? Everybody's MAGA. Everybody is jumping on the Trump train. As he signs those executive orders in the Oval Office and beyond, it's pretty amazing to watch. And a lot of people want in. And that's fine. I'm all about expanding the base. But there are some people who can never come back, ever. And I mean ever, like this guy.
I cannot, in good conscience, endorse Donald Trump in this campaign.
Yep. Mike Pence. Wooden and weird Mike Pence. And that goes for his buddy, Mark Short, as well. Chief of Staff Mark Short. Chief of Staff to Mike Pence, Mark Short. I mean, every time he came on to throw water on the Trump train, it was always the Chief of Staff to Mike Pence, Mark Short.
Joining me now is Mark Short. He's Mr. Pence's former chief of staff.
Along with Mark Short, former chief of staff to Vice President Mike Pence, and a Meet the Press and CNBC contributor.
Former chief of staff to Vice President Mike Pence. Mark Short was in that meeting.
And he was always a reliable, negative voice on Trump. No matter the occasion, he served the fake news mission to get anybody, any Republican, any rhino to say something bad about Trump. A negative spin was always welcome, and he always provided.
We're joined now by Mark Short, former chief of staff to former Vice President Mike Pence.
At times he did look a little pained about it, but he always delivered.
The sordid nature of this certainly doesn't help the former president. And I think, furthermore, the reality of him being seen in this venue is rather diminishing. I think the former president is used to controlling so much of his own environment, even to the extent of camera angles and lighting. And the fact that he controls none of that in this courtroom, I think, can be diminishing. And so at the end of the day, I don't think it's a net plus for gaining new voters.
How diminishing, how diminishing. The whole damn thing was diminishing for America that they put him through that. But it was always that negative spin. Now that Trump has won, though, I've noticed that, well, a couple of things. It's gotten a bit more crowded, right? It's gotten a bit more crowded. People are joining, even Mark Short. When he shows up on the fake news, there's a new way of introducing him. Remember, it was all Mike Pence's chief of staff. Mike Pence's chief of staff served as Mike Pence's chief of staff. Well, they went and found some other job they had like 8 years ago.
Let's bring in CNBC contributor Mark Short, of course, the former director of legislative affairs for President Trump in his first 2 years.
Mark Short, he was also the former director of legislative affairs for President Trump.
And Mark Short, former Trump director of legislative affairs.
And he was trying to trip up Trump every step of the way, according to some of my sources. Interesting, though, it's a marketing shift, a marketing strategy. That's okay, but you're going to see a lot of it. And we're seeing a lot of it. If the change is genuine, I doubt it. Most of these people are out for themselves, and you got to be very, very vigilant about them. Next, please.
We're going to win with every single facet. We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
Well, this is the ultimate sequence, I think, because he wasn't exaggerating. Look at the past 2 weeks. You realize Inauguration Day was 2 weeks ago. Just 2 weeks ago, Mexico caved, Panama caved, Colombia caved, Venezuela caved, Canada panicked, and now they caved. The mass deportations, hostages are home, DEI programs being scudded, bureaucracy slashed, FBI purges underway, USAID, they may shut down the whole thing. The gender ideology going away. Doge has already saved billions. 51 intel agents who said the Hunter laptop was real, They're out of the intelligence business. Border crossings down. The reservoirs are filled up. My favorite on this list so far, the purges at the FBI. So necessary. The people who should have been protecting us were abusing so many, abusing the powerless, abusing those without connections. And they were relentless. And you know what? If they're a little bit nervous right now, that's good.
There is palpable fear at the FBI today as the Trump administration hunts for prosecutors and now FBI agents who have run afoul of their political preferences, their being Trump's. This morning, NBC News obtained a document that showed how top officials identified anyone who may have worked on January 6 cases. They were ID'd, and so DOJ could send them each a 12-question survey asking them what exactly they did on those cases.
What exactly did they do on those cases? And many, many others. It's amazing they can find anybody to defend what the FBI did related to January 6th and so many other offenses, like surveilling President Trump during the 2016 campaign. This is the absolute truth. They wiretapped his campaign, and they did so illegally. Carter Page, a foreign policy advisor to President Trump, they found a back door. They lied on the FISA application, and they got away with it, essentially. Strzok and Page, openly, the contempt they had for President Trump, and what were they doing to stop that election? The Hunter Biden laptop, it goes on and on and on. They had it, they hid it, they knew it was legitimate, and they tried to sway an election. How dare they enter Mar-a-Lago? And they did. August 8th, 2022. For me, the whole world changed that day. And they staged evidence. Bad enough that they went in there, but they went in there for no legitimate reason. And then they staged all this stuff to make it look like President Trump was guilty. But really, I think the worst of it all was their persecution of the January 6ers. People who didn't, in most cases, break anything, hurt anybody. That was the number one priority of the FBI. The number one priority, because they went along with the Biden administration. They did not have to. They had all kinds of, they could have come to Congress. They could have said, we're not bothering people who did not hurt anybody and did not break anything. But they just went all in with Joe Biden. Message after message, social media just pushing this fake narrative. And it was all an effort, really, to cancel MAGA and to tarnish President Trump. It was one of the most overt political things ever done by a government agency. It's incredible, and they're not going to get away with it. Actually, finally, we have accountability, which Christopher Wray didn't get a pardon, did he? That's a good thing.
The January 6th attack here at the Capitol. I was appalled, like you, at the violence and destruction that we saw that day. I was appalled that you, our country's elected leaders, were victimized right here in these very halls. That attack, that siege, was criminal behavior, plain and simple, and it's behavior that we, the FBI, view as domestic terrorism.
And that's the problem. Domestic terrorism, my foot, domestic terrorism. And they started hassling and persecuting and prosecuting good people who may have been the victims of entrapment. In fact, I know they were, like Christopher Cuny. Christopher Cuny, a veteran Marine Corps officer, not a shred of criminality in his background. I showed you this before, right? When they went after him, when they showed up at his house, how did they do it? They brought the FBI SWAT team, one after the next after the next. Look at these guys. Hut, 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 hut.
I'll tell you when you bring them in. Yeah.
Are you serious? They were serious. Again, it was an effort to cancel MAGA and cancel President Trump. You had to create this fantasy that somehow we were something to be worried about, something that posed a threat, existential threat to democracy, right? How about Rex Hoyerman? Who's he? At some point, I think he must have been on the FBI most wanted list. We didn't know his name until they found the DNA evidence. He is the suspected Gilgo Beach serial murderer. He may have murdered at least 7 women. They expect that list to go up. What happened when the police arrested him? They used common sense, and they arrested him without incident on the street. Check it out.
Here you see the Gilgo suspect, Rex Herman, an architect who works in Manhattan, calmly walking down Fifth Avenue at 7 in the evening last Thursday night, July 13th. When the Massapequa Park resident reached the end of the block, you see a number of agents in dark suits make the arrest.
That's the way it's supposed to be done, all right? You figure out what's necessary and you use what's necessary. Can we see Rex Hoyerman next to Christopher Cuny? You see the difference here? You see something is totally wrong? Why? Because they were trying to cancel MAGA. They were trying to send a message. They were trying to kill the candidacy of President Trump before it even started. How about that? And now the FBI, what can they do? They can thump their chest and try to pretend that they're the good guys in all of this, but they're not. So some of the agents are actually speaking out. There's some good agents there, but there are some rotten managers like this guy. Let's go ahead and put him up on the screen, please. His name, I believe, is Dennehy. And look, the incoming administration, it's already here, wants to know a little bit about how the FBI treated January 6th and sent out some questionnaires, and they want some names. This guy says, not through me. He leaked an email to the New York Times. Today, we find ourselves in the middle of a battle of our own, as good people are being walked out of the FBI. And others are being targeted because they did their jobs in accordance with the law and FBI policy. Fear and angst within the FBI ranks. What else? I mourn the forced retirements. Mourn. They are warriors. That's a tricky piece of language. I wouldn't be using that if I were in the FBI and I had the SWAT team at my disposal. But the histrionics and the, oh, we're just the good guys, they're hitting that hard. Don't fall for it.
It's clear to me that Donald Trump lacks the capacity to seriously understand how seriously FBI agents take their oath of office. I don't think he grasps that. I don't think it's a concept he gets. But when you raise your right hand and swear to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, I don't think anyone takes it more seriously than the U.S. military and the FBI.
Now, there's a real problem at the FBI that they went along with this in an effort to cancel a political movement. This, in addition to all of the mistakes and screw-ups over the years. Federal Bureau of Investigation, I mean, it's kind of inherently a disaster, right? But they have messed up so many high-profile cases. And what about the lower-profile cases? What about the screw-ups that we never hear about? Stand by for this, too. What do they do when they're under attack, when they're being criticized? Try to make it that criticizing the FBI, especially the management, is somehow undermining the men and women of law enforcement. It's an old swamp trick.
Well, thank you for that, but it's the men and women of the FBI that make the place run.
And we're very grateful for the support you give to the men and women of the FBI.
But the vast majority of men and women working at the Bureau do phenomenal work.
Simply put, sir, you cannot stop the men and women of the FBI from doing the right thing.
Well, the men and women of the FBI, the good ones, deserve better than this cadre of leaders who have went through the upper ranks over the past couple of years. Kash Patel is on his way. The confirmation is looking rock solid. He does have his work cut out for him, but there is no man more prepared for that task than Kash Patel.